Hello guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we are going to analyze some few pairs. Okay, last week the market has been consolidating. Okay, so we didn't have even potential setups that were ready for entry. Okay, so the whole of last week trades, the last week analysis that we did, the trades are still on our value areas. Okay, and they are yet to play out, so we'll just go through them. If you haven't seen my last week video, just go back to my other last week video on my YouTube channel and you'll find it there. Okay, so we are going to see how far they have gone, and then we are going to analyze three pairs, which is Aussie dollar, CAD yen, and US oil. Okay, so let's start with the last week pairs that we analyzed and see how they are doing currently. So we did analyze Aussie Swiss franc and we are looking for the buys, and as you can see, we had this three touch pattern over here, but as you can see, the price didn't push up, forming that correction for an entry to enter the market. Okay, instead it consolidated in this area and pushed back down. So with this in mind, I did reanalyze my pair, and I decided to move my pattern to the first lower low that it had. Okay, first lower low, and it has lined up nicely. As you can see, it has lined up nicely with this area. So we are currently on this third touch, and as you can see, this candle is quite impulsive as compared to this area that we are looking at. This one over here was so corrective. So with this pair, I'm just expecting it to come back a little on lower time frame. Okay, on lower time frame, then push up, followed by a clear correction for an entry. Then we go to the upside. So as you can see, this pair is still valid, and we are just waiting for that. This is the clear correction that you can get, but you can catch at an even earlier entry in this pair, because as you can see, this was a clear two green candles. So if this price just give us a small correction over here, then you can take this entry and again add position to this big entry over here. So better watch out on this one, guys. They are so close to be ready. Okay, they are so close to be ready actually. As you can see with this pair, it's so close, so be alert on it. So let's go through Euro Pound also. We did analyze last week. As you can see with Euro Pound, I told you guys to look for buys in these areas, but you can see for me, I didn't get my entry did not come through because I'm focusing on my level, on my value area. Okay, the price has come back down for quite a few times over here, but it has failed to reach my value area. So if this price takes off from here, I won't take this trade. Okay, I won't take this trade. I want this trade to push back down to these levels of mine. That's when I will take this trade. Okay, I'm usually so disciplined with my entries, so that's why I clear out the formal feeling that most people have, because I usually take my entries on my value area that I want them to. So with this one, if it takes off from here without me, then I'll let it go. But for me, I want it to reach on my value area. So as you can see, this one is still on our low, and it's so nice because I'm looking to focus on this high over here. As I told you guys, Euro Pound tends to give us double tops and double bottoms before pushing to the direction that it's supposed to. So with this one, I'm expecting this one to reach up to the double top, and then we look for those sells to the downside. Okay, because the pattern is the three touch pattern and has given us that third touch over here, which shows us that the price should be pushing to the downside. Next is pound card. As you can see, the pound card also, I did tell you guys to wait for the correction. Okay, I told you guys to wait for the correction after this impulsive move. Okay, after this impulsive move over here, I told you guys to wait for this correction. And I know some of you maybe could have taken it from these areas over here, but for me, my value area has not yet been reached over here. So with these areas being tapped, I did not look for any entry because I want my entry to be on my value area over here. So I want this pair just to come back to this area, and then that's where I'll take my entries for the buys. So as you can see, these pairs, they have just been consolidating the whole week. They have just been consolidating. They haven't moved. Okay, let's see at Kiwi dollar. Kiwi dollar, the same thing that has happened. Okay, the same thing that has happened. We're expecting this price to push all the way to this third touch over here. Then we see what will happen. Either we are going to sell or we are going to continue the buys. Okay, so with Kiwi dollar currently the price pushed up and we are expecting this correction over here. Okay, but as you can see, we are still at that correction phase, because as you can see, this was an impulse. This one is a correction for another impulse the downside. So if you wanted to get that impulse the downside, we get this setup over here. It will be a 3-touch pattern. So with this 3-touch pattern, it will give us a triple bottom over here. Now with this triple bottom, that's when I'll be looking for my buys to the overall buys over here, because it's giving me a clean pattern over here to indicate that the price wants to push the upside. Okay, so be alert on this one, guys. These pairs will start to kick off from next week, so be alert on them. So with pound Swiss franc, as you can see, pound Swiss franc also, we had this lovely pattern over here, and currently we are still at our third touch. It hasn't moved yet. We are still at our third touch, so we are still waiting for the same thing that I told you guys yesterday, last week. We are waiting for that clear impulse followed by a correction, then we take this price to the upside. We just have to wait. We just have to wait for this impulsive move before taking our trades. Okay, so because this will determine if the downtrend the down correction has finished or not. Okay, so let's wait for this impulsive break to the upside followed by a correction. It will be so nice, this one. Then let's go to Eurocard. Also Eurocard, as I told you guys, wait for this correction over here, potentially to this level or below this level, and then we take those buys up to this area. Then we will see how the market reacts. If it will give us a sign of continuation to the downside, then we'll take this third touch to the downside. But if it breaks the trend line impulsive, then we'll continue to ride it to the top. So we'll manage this trade with our stop loss, because as you can see from last week, we drew this big pattern over here, which we are at our third touch over here. So there is likelihood that this price can start pushing all the way to the upside from these levels. So be alert also on this one, guys, because we are still at the bottom of it. Lastly, we analyzed Nasdaq. Okay, with the Nasdaq, let's just see Nasdaq. If I am to invert it, as you can see with Nasdaq has started pushing to the buys to the upside, but as you can see, we didn't get our third touch over here. So for me, I didn't look for any entry, because I have to see a third touch over there, or a third touch with a key area being tapped. Okay, so with this long bullish candle over here, I'm not sure if it will continue the run, or it will just make another correction over here for it to continue again to the downside. I'm not sure about it, but if you are sticking to your rules, you just stick to your rules. Because with this one, we didn't get the third touch. Okay, I can't force this thing to have a third touch. For me, if we don't have a complete pattern, there is not even an entry to look at. Okay, so for this one, I'll just wait and see how the pattern is going to react in these levels. If it's going to give us a pattern over here, then we'll take the downside. If it continues to push to the upside, we'll wait for that clear correction over here for us to take it to the upside. Okay, so there is no clear signal that tells me that this price is ready for the push to the upside. Okay, so we might see one last drop before we start pushing to the upside. Okay, so those are the pairs that we did analyze last week. Okay, we did analyze those pairs last week, so be alert on them and follow them. So next, let's go through 3 pairs that I've added on the list. Okay, that is Aussie dollar. Let's start with Aussie dollar. We start from the weekly. As you can see, the Aussie dollar, we had a clear momentum over here. This is a clear momentum, and this one looks like a corrective phase to me, because after this small impulsive move, the price started to be choppy in this area. So this one is a clear correction for this push to the upside. Okay, so with that in mind, let's just try and come up with pattern over here. Let's just try and come up with a clear pattern over here. Since the downtrend, I'll invert it so that I can get a clear view of this. Okay, so this is what we have, and if I'm to draw a pattern, I'll start from this key area over here and this area over here. And as you can see, the price broke this high. Let me just invert it back. The price broke this low. Okay, after breaking this low, we expect this price to continue to the downside. Okay, but as you can see, the price pushed up again to break this high also. So after breaking this high, it was supposed to continue to the upside because it will be an uptrend. So seeing these moves, breaking lows and breaking the highs, it was a clear indication that this price was forming an expanding pattern. Okay, so with this expanding pattern, I'm expecting this price to push to the upside. Okay, because this is the expanding pattern pushing to the downside. Okay, so with that in mind, I have this clear pattern over here. We have first touch over here, first touch on the upper side, second touch. So I was expecting this third touch to be the clear push in price to the upside, followed by a correction and continuation to the upside. But as you can see, the price came back down and gave us a double bottom. Okay, the price has given us a double bottom over here. So we are still focusing on those buys. Okay, we are still focusing on those buys, and looking at it, we also have this pattern over here. Okay, we need to be alert on all the patterns that we can see, because you never know which one will move the market. Okay, because this one might come up to this level, give us a third touch, and then drop to the downside. Okay, so with this Aussie dollar, the price is shaping up nicely, and as you can see, after this double bottom has happened, the price pushed up, followed by a clean correction over here. So with this correction, this looks like a breakout of it. With this breakout, you can look for a lower time frame correction over here for an entry, or you can wait for a clear push in price. Okay, as you can see, it has broken the overall trend line. So with this one, you can look for a clear push in price over here. We can just wait for another candle, then wait for a good correction of a higher time frame, and take this to the upside. So this one looks also lovely, and I will be focusing on this one. You should too, because this trade looks nice. Okay, so with this trade, first target will be on these levels on the upper trend line, because that will be the third touch. But the overall pattern shows us that the price will be pushing to the upside much higher. Okay, so with this, we'll see how the market reacts when it reaches this level over here. Okay, well, how it reaches this level. So be alert on Aussie dollar, guys. It looks nice. Okay, next we are going to CAD yen. Yen pairs have been shaping up nicely. And it's been a while since I analyzed the yen pairs. So let's go through CAD yen first. Let's go on a weekly chart. First and foremost, I'm seeing this overall correction over here, because after this impulsive move over here, the price started to form this correction phase over here. So I'm expecting this price to push to the downside. Okay, so with that in mind, let's just come up with this pattern over here. As you can see, this is a weekly chart, and the pattern is quite nice. Actually, this pattern is so nice. We are looking for the move to the downside. Okay, so let's go down to a daily chart to see how it's happening. As you can see, the price did reach our third touch, and after reaching our third touch, it pushed to the downside. So with that push to the downside, okay, as you can see, this move was quite aggressive to the upside, as there was no any big correction on it. So with this impulsive phase, I do expect either a deep pullback, or with the pattern that we have, a reversal in the market. Okay, so with that in mind, we can see this was another aggressive push to the downside, and I'm taking this as a correction to continue to the downside. So if this is the correction, then my potential area that I look for an entry is at the double top over here. Okay, double top is a good area for an entry, or you can look at the trend line. Okay, you can look at the trend line. As you can see, this trend line was broken impulsive in these areas over here. So for me to get this clear entry, I just need to see one last push to the upside, maybe even up to these levels, then we drop the downside. So with this one, it will give me a pattern in these areas over here. It will give me a pattern in this area. Now if this three touch pattern comes so clean enough for me to to see it. Okay, if this clean pattern comes here for me to see it, you can see this clear pattern will give us a nice entry for the sales over here. And this one is going to be a big one because our first target will be in these levels over here. This will be our first target. No, this will be a second target because our first target will be on the 90% rule, which is in these levels. So focus on CAD yen, guys. Most yen pairs are shaping up nicely, but I love how CAD yen has moved because the other pairs have extended from their patterns. So with this one, it did reach a third touch and drop to the downside. So I take this as a correction, wait for that last push to the upside. Then after the first impulse to the downside, wait for that correction, and then you enter the market. Okay, because CAD yen looks nice and has a lot of room to cover. Okay, if this is the reversal that we have been waiting for, then this price could fall for the rest of the year. Okay, so be alert on this one, guys. Lastly, we are going to go through US oil. US oil, we have been anticipating for this move for a long time. I'm actually in these cells. Okay, I'm in these cells already from the top over here. Okay, so I'm in these cells. My stop loss is currently above this correction over here. So if I come back to this correction and pass it, I will be taken out. So with this one, the market has been pushing up quite corrective. Okay, the market has been pushing up quite corrective in this pair, and as you can see, this was the clear impulsive move followed by a correction and a continuation to the downside. So with this big move over here, you can see the correction reach up to these levels over here. But as you can see, with this correction, with this impulsive move, with this impulsive phase over here, we had impulsive move from the top over here. So I was expecting this correction to be a deeper one up to these levels over here, because this is the area that I was expecting the price to reach. So with that in mind, let's just see what we can come up with over here. Okay, so we can come up with, if I go to a lower time frame, I'll get this anchor point from these levels. Okay, if I go to a lower time frame, that will be an anchor point. Okay, and then we have this. This was a very big pattern. This was a very, very big pattern. Okay, so this could have been my pattern over here if I was to draw it. And again, I could have added another pattern over here which looks kind of the same with what we are having. And this is the pattern that before the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, this was the pattern that we were focusing on, because it gave us a nice pattern over here also. Okay, so we were looking for these sales from these levels down here, and as you can see, the price pushed up aggressive with this big candle during the Russia-Ukraine conflict over here. So as you can see, this high wick test tried to reach the pattern but did not reach. But for me, on higher time frame, especially on weekly, these patterns rarely play out, because you might find out that in a pattern, in lower time frame, you might find out that lower time frame there is a better pattern that played out much better than the overall bigger pattern, because bigger pattern most of the time tend to have a double tops and double bottoms. That's why they don't usually play out as expected. So as you can see, with this impulsive move, we quickly reversed down with this reversal move over here. So with this sharp move to the downside, we needed to see that corrective move to the upside, then we continue to the downside. Okay, and that's what we are seeing currently over here. This was an impulsive move. Okay, and with that in mind, we can come up with a pattern in this area. As you can see, the price pushed up over here with a pattern. Okay, this was the pattern that pushed the price to the upside. And you can see it did extend. Once it extended, it did drop to the downside, followed by a correction, forming a double top, and then it dropped again to the downside. So with that in mind, once it pushed down, you can see this is a clear correction, guys. This is a very clear correction. So with this clear correction, there was high chance that this price will push the downside at some point. Okay, so it was either to come back to reach our double top areas, which I can take with a zone from this area over here, because this is the area that wicks started to form. But at the same time, we could have come up with a pattern over here. So if I'm to draw a pattern, could have just drawn this pattern in these areas. This is the first pattern I could have drawn. Okay, this is the first pattern I could have drawn over here. But as you can see, within this pattern, there are so much patterns that we could have come up with in these areas, because we still have a pattern over here. And as you can see, all these patterns are still lining up at the top, meaning there was no third touch in these areas. Okay, and within that pattern, we also have this pattern. Just look where these patterns are all heading to. Look where these patterns are all heading to. Okay, so with these patterns in mind, we needed to see this push all the way to these areas, even if it will have extended a bit with the wick, then come back down, giving us that correction and push the downside. But as you can see, what happened is the price did not give us that third touch that we have been waiting for all these patterns. And instead, it pushed the downside corrective and then pushed the upside, giving us a double top, and then it broke to the downside. So with this break to the downside, once this price broke to the downside, to break this trend line of mine, I decided to look for a correction, for potential entry in this market. So I went down to a 1 hour. I went down to a 1 hour chart, and then I looked at this one. I looked at this area over here. So this is the area that I looked for my entry in these levels over here, because with these levels, that's why we got a bit of rejections in those areas. As you can see, this is the area that we got more rejections. Okay, so I was focusing in this area on how the price will react in these levels. So once I saw these two red candles, I did set my entry in these levels over here. So after setting this entry, the price took off to the downside. As you can see, currently I've held my stop loss up to these levels over here. This is the area that I've held my stop loss, because to me this one again looks like just another correction for continuation to the downside. Okay, this one for me looks like a continuation to the downside. So be alert on that one. It will be a bit difficult to catch this one because the price has already moved quite a bit. Okay, but this trade, we have been analyzing this oil for a long time. Before we even had this push, we were looking for buys in these levels, of which we took. Okay, so we have been in oil for a long time. It has been on my watch list for a very long time. Okay, and it looks nice. So if we get a clear pattern in this area, then we'll take this for the ride again to the sell, for the sales, because this looks like a clear correction to me. Okay, so that's it for this week, guys. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Cheers, guys.